What's up, everybody? It's Spencer Alessi, and this is the Esports Narrative. What's up, everybody? This is episode 34 of the Esports Narrative. I am your host, Spencer Alessi, and tonight I am joined by Heroiikz. Heroiikz, how you doing, man?
Doing all right, man. How are you?
Doing great. So, for those who are just listening to us on the podcast now, Heroiikz is a streamer and Twitch affiliate. He's, working his way up to go partnered. I know he's trying real hard for that. He's he's a pro Rocket League player for Onslaught Clan, and I'm super excited to have you here because you're the first Rocket League guest that I've had on the show, or a Rocket League speciality, I should say. And I'm really just curious. Tell everybody who you are, what's your story, how did you get into video games, and how did you get into Rocket League, and then how did you get into streaming?
All right, so competitively, I started around like Halo and Call of Duty, like first-person shooter and third-person shooter kind of games. But I didn't really take it too seriously. I never really ventured into like tournaments or competitive. I usually just played ranked and like grind the rank leaderboards. Rocket League is actually the first game where I took actually seriously and started getting on teams, doing tournaments, winning a few tournaments, coming close in some of them, and actually doing really well, I think, in the Rocket League scene so far. Yeah, everything started up when like COD was out. I've been watching TP, Nadeshot, all those guys. So basically, that's where my esports adventure started, was with Nadeshot and TP, watching those guys all the time.
Yeah, so that was kind of like your inspiration. You saw those guys and you saw them on TV and stuff, and you're like, wow, that's pretty cool. That would be pretty fun to do.
Basically, yeah. I mean, I've been a fan of Call of Duty and Halo for, I can't even remember how long. But just seeing like those guys compete at such a high level kind of inspired me to try and do the same thing.
And how old are you now, and how old were you when you were looking up to those players?
I'm 26 now, and I mean, let's see, I was probably, like 18, maybe 17 when I started watching.
Nice. So I'm really curious to talk a little bit more specifics about Rocket League. So you're on Onslaught, you're a player for Onslaught Clan. I know that you guys were making runs at the RLCS and things like that. What's your training like, and how do you prepare, or how are you preparing for your next RLCS run? What's your training look like, and what do you guys how do you practice? Give us a kind of a inside look at like what are you doing to kind of prepare and get better and improve?
Well, one thing that we do as a team pretty much like all the time is try and go over the replays of tournaments, just see where we went wrong. Even during the games that we won, just try and figure out what we did right so we can try and replicate that. But mostly just viewing replays, trying to play together as much as possible. I know Alan's been busy with college, so we've been kind of struggling in the practice factor as of late, but I believe we'll get through that, man.
Yeah, it's always interesting to see, the real life part of esports kicking in, like college and, work and things like that, and trying to balance practice and training and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's pretty difficult. I mean, right now, my job, I've been working a lot of overtime, and Alec and Alan are both just starting college. So it's pretty hard, but we're making our way through it, trying to practice as much as possible.
Yeah. So as a player, why did you choose Rocket League over other esports to get more serious in?
I chose Rocket League primarily based on the fact because I used to play like SARP back on PS3, like Supersonic Acrobatic Rocket Power Battle Cars, which is a tongue twister in its own.
Yeah.
Surprised I didn't mess it up. But I played that really casually, like all the time on PS3. And really, after Rocket League came out, I was super hyped, super excited. Decided this is the game. I loved playing on PS3 for SARP. And I knew I was just going to love this game and where it would take me.
So what makes you attracted to the game, like from a competitive standpoint? You mentioned the game in general, but like what from a competitive standpoint, is there something that you're attracted to more so than the other games from a competitive standpoint?
Let's see. Probably knowing all of the players, either personally or having played against them in tournaments, and seeing how much they improve over like the weeks and the months. I think that's the most inspiring thing on this esports scene compared to the other ones that I tried.
Yeah. What is it? What's driving you forward? Like, what's driving you in terms of your ambition? And do you want to be the top team? Do you want to be the best player in NA? Like, what are some of the things that are motivating you to continue to play and compete?
I'm trying to have my own style of play. Usually in Rocket League, it's based off of rotations, keeping a like 1, 2, 3 kind of rotation aspect on the field. But I like to create my own style of play, so that's kind of making me want to be the best player at what I do myself. That's
So
what's driving me forward.
yeah. So describe your style a bit more for us, if you could.
So basically, my style of play, which a lot of people like to call it ball chasing, but I have a very aggressive standpoint on the field. I try and figure out how quickly I can get to the ball, and if it's the most like, what is the word? Most desirable play for the team, I guess. Kind of having trouble with words right now, but that's all right. Just making sure it's the best option to go for the ball. But yeah, I do typically ball chase a little bit, but it's a smart ball chase. I don't just throw myself at the ball, not thinking about what's going to happen if I mess up. I
Right.
try and position myself to where even if I do mess up or if the opponent gets by me, then my team can back me up. I can rotate back and get back into the mix.
Yeah. Now I know that Rocket League in the beginning, I've heard that it was assumed to have a superior high skill ceiling, right? So is that
Oh
still the
yeah.
case? Like, describe that a little bit about the skill ceiling, and maybe compare it to another game. And what do you think is going to be the next style of play that the pros are going to try and achieve?
Well, the skill ceiling in Rocket League is incredibly high because of all the mechanics, all the ball control that you can have, whether it be on the ground and in the air. Really, I don't think the pros are going to change up too much on what they're doing, how they're like moving down the field and passing the ball. The one big thing that's happening now that a lot of players are getting into is playing off of the ceiling. Because if you just let yourself fall off, you maintain your jump and you can use it whenever you want in the air. A lot of players have started adapting that into their game. But I think rotations are going to be primarily the main factor going forward in this esport. But I don't even think we're anywhere close to the skill ceiling that Rocket League has. Whereas in like Call of Duty or Halo, it's all about your positioning and all about your gun skill. There's not really much you can improve on if you already have like superior aim. It's just basically being in the right situation at the right time. Whereas in Rocket League, you control every single aspect on the field.
Now you mentioned the ceiling. How is that changing the way you're playing against an opponent who's using that?
To bring up two names that are standing out to me when it comes to like playing off the ceiling is Squishy, and I believe Bluey has been trying to mess around with some ceiling stuff as of late, and they're actually succeeding with it. In order to play against them, you one have to get to the ball before they can off the ceiling. You can't let them already be on the ball because then they can use their jump whenever they want, which is extremely dangerous to like a defensive team. So it's either like the first option, get to the ball before they're able to fall off the ceiling and get to the ball, or just wait for their shot and react, which is extremely hard to do when they can jump whenever they want.
And how hard is playing off the ceiling? Like, you've seen it done, it's being done more and more, but how difficult is it actually to pull that off and do it well?
Well, everything in Rocket League is based off your mechanics. So if you practice it a lot and get used to like the physics of how you fall off the ceiling and how hard you hit the ball before you go on the ceiling, it's not too difficult, I would say, to learn like the ceiling shots and how to position yourself well for all that. But for someone who practices in ranked games, it could be extremely difficult to learn that on the fly. Kind of something that you have to go in the free training or go in the training packs and practice that way.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because that kind of leads into my next question, is talking a little bit about lower level players here and how to get better. What specific tips would you or advice would you give someone who's learning to practice playing off the ceiling, or learning to get better, or is playing competitively and wants to get better? What's some advice you would give people who are trying to get better?
I'd say for beginner or intermediate players, I wouldn't even focus on the ceiling. I'd leave that later on down the road when you get more skill into the game. But a lot of like workshop maps on PC are amazing. There's dribble trainings, there's obstacle courses that can help you like get your aerial mechanics down. The training packs and custom training, there's a lot of shot packs, a lot of goalie packs that allow you to make shots from different angles and maybe tighter angles than you're used to. But for, I guess, like the newer players, I would just focus on training packs, free training, just hitting the ball, getting used to how the ball bounces off the walls, how the ball goes up the ramp, and how your car like lands on the floor.
So
I'd
yeah, no, that's good advice. If is there anything that separates, one of the things I always think about with video games is, okay, when you think about Halo or Call of Duty or Counter-Strike, they all have like ranking systems and things like that. Aside, obviously there's the mental aspect, and then there's the experience and the, wisdom of knowing where the player is going to be at any given time, or what they're going to do based on your experience and just knowing the game. But from a skill level, is that what separates, the champions from the gold, platinum, and diamond players? Like, what are some things that differentiate the lower skilled or lower level players with those who are reaching those higher levels of diamond, platinum, gold, and champion?
I would say it's all in the mindset and the, I guess, thinking ahead in the game. Mechanics, I'd say most players from probably Diamond 1 up to Champion 3 have basically the same mechanical skill. It's just the mindset and how they play the game. I'd probably focus on higher level players, just reacting to the other players and letting them make mistakes. But for like lower levels, I'd say around gold and platinum, the difference between them and the diamond through champ players mostly is the technical skill or the mechanical skill, where they're not as good in the air or they're not as fast in the air. But
Yeah.
mostly from diamonds to champ 3, it's all like the thinking game. It's not really based on mechanics anymore.
So it's the mind game. It's knowing what to do, when to do, and how to do it, or why to do it. So what are maybe some tips for developing that? Like, is it just from playing the competitive modes, or like how do you develop that kind of that sense or awareness?
For me, it was like just grinding out tournaments, seeing how other players are playing, like what they do in certain situations, and just basing my style of play off of what other people do. I don't necessarily try and like beat the other player, I try and focus on making them like make or causing them to make mistakes or causing them to be in situations where they don't want to be in. For instance, some players struggle when they're in like the corners of the field on how to clear the ball or how to get past opponents. So if I notice that, I'm gonna try and pressure the ball into the corners and try and let them make mistakes.
So do you have, when you go into matches, do you have a game plan or you have some scouting that you do beforehand, and do you work up like these plans of attack of you're gonna try and get them in these positions, or what does that look like for you guys?
If it's a team that we have a lot of information on, there is a certain like factor to the game where either they struggle on the backboard, so you're going to use the backboard a lot. They like turtle up on defense, so you're going to try and use passes a lot through the midfield. If it's a fast team, for instance, say Cloud9 or PSG, what in the world just happened on the monitor?
No
Alright, I'm
worries.
back.
No worries.
Yeah, if it's a team like Cloud9 or PSG, then I'd probably just try and play as fast as you can. Just hope they don't beat you to the ball. But for most of the time, you do develop some sort of strategy against teams that you play a lot. You notice what their weaknesses are, what their strengths are. You try and keep them away from situations that they like to be in.
Yeah.
But most of the time, it's just all reaction. There's not much like planning you can do.
So I'm curious of your response on this. It's one of the age-old question of offense versus defense, and I'm curious what you think is better. Is it better to have, is it better to be on offense and just be hyper aggressive and always be pushing and always be aggressive, or is it better to be more defensive and let them come to you, let them make the mistakes and play it kind of passively like that? What do you think is better, or what do you try and do personally with yourself or your team?
If you are a very fast-paced team and you're extremely consistent, I would probably focus on an offensive like style of play. Just be all up in the opponent's face. Don't let them breathe. Don't let them have any room. But if you find yourself to be sort of an inconsistent player, maybe you make mistakes a little bit when going on the offensive pitch of the field, probably focus more on the defensive end, because like making those saves, getting back on defense is extremely crucial to winning games. But it all depends on your style of play and if you're consistent. If you're consistent, I say just all out offense. Have that one person that's always rotating back when people are moving in. But if you're inconsistent, I'd probably focus on the defensive side of the field.
Now, going back to kind of a previous question, but I think this ties in, is how do you break through to get to the next level of skill, right? So if you're Diamond 1 and you want to try and get to Champion, what are the things you can do to kind of break through? Is it, having a team and really working together well? Can you do it just by yourself? Like, how do you break through to that next level?
For the diamond players, maybe like the gold players, definitely find people to play with. Because at those skill tiers of the game, solo queuing or playing by yourself really isn't going to help you, because you can't rely on those people on your team. They're going to make mistakes. It's going to happen because it is a low skill tier. So finding people to play with, find friends that you can play with consistently, and just try and build some chemistry with them. Basically, the easiest way to rank up.
Where did you find people to play with? I'm curious on your thought of where do you go to find people? Where did you find people to play with? And how can people find, really good people to play with that are not toxic and, like verbally abusive?
I'd probably focus on community tournaments. A lot of community tournaments allow you to sign up by yourself. And I wouldn't say a lot of tournaments, but I know VVV has a draft night where everyone signs up by themselves and the captains select their players. VVV Gaming is probably a really good organization or a really good community that runs tournaments. If you want to try and get yourself more known to other players, it's probably a good place to start. I
Yeah.
don't know of too many like apps or sites, but you can always use Reddit. You can post something on Reddit on the Rocket League subreddit and try and find people to play with there. Yeah, there's not really that many places to find people to play with, but the tournament organizations like Discords, that's also another way you can find people. Going into like the Nexus Gaming or the VVV Gaming or Boost Legacy, any of the tournament organization Discords, there's always people looking to play. Probably
Yeah,
find people there.
just like browsing around I was looking at the Facebook groups the other day for Rocket League, and it seems to be like a pretty active community, I would say. I mean, I just searching on Facebook, I saw maybe 10 to 12 like Rocket League highlight groups and, garage groups and things like that. So it seems like it's a pretty active community, right?
Yeah, the Rocket League scene is definitely an active community. It's one of the most active communities and one of the most supportive communities. Of course, you're always going to have those toxic people, those toxic players that just show up out of nowhere and ruin your day. But for the most part, everyone's nice. Everyone's cool to each other.
Now, how do you feel about the rewards in Rocket League and the reward system as far as like champions go or grand champions? I've been told that, recently Grand Champs is not feeling like there's something to gain from the GC level. And that's one particular question I wanted to ask you is your opinion on that. Do you feel that way? And if you do, like, what are some things that psyonix can maybe do to improve that from your perspective?
From my perspective, I've been Grand Champ or whatever the highest rank was every single season. So there's not really much that we're gaining out of rewards. And there's also been like mess ups on the MMR or ELO end of the ranked, where a lot of people that aren't necessarily up at that Grand Champ skill level have gotten there just because of the messed up rank system. But I love what they did with like the skill tiers and like tier rewards where you have to win like 10 or 12 games or so in order to earn that reward for that rank. I like what they implemented there. I think that's a really good idea, but I would still like to see something for top 100 players. I think that's the next step where they have to improve on.
Yeah. So what do you see, or what do you want to see in the Rocket League esports scene in the future? Like if you could decide some things that they implement or things like that, what would that be?
Mostly I want to see a new like qualifier or something like that, because all these qualifiers are based on one good day of playing. Any team can not be playing well that day and they're not going to get in the RLCS or they're not going to get in the RLRS. So I'd like to see multiple tournaments, kind of like how ESL is set up for their monthlies, where you compete in a tournament. Depending on your placement, you get an amount of points towards like that monthly. I would like to see the same thing for RLCS or RLRS, where you compete in, say, weekly or monthly tournaments, and the top like maybe 32 teams compete in a tournament at the end of the season to try and figure out who gets into RLRS or something like that.
Yeah. Now, I'm going to switch gears a little bit and kind of ask more of a personal question. What's been one of your worst moments so far in your competing career of Rocket League?
The worst moment definitely would have to be this last qualifier. We went into it thinking we definitely had the skill for RLRS and to qualify at least for that like second league, and we wound up just playing bad that whole day. We weren't really feeling it. There was some tension going on with the team that whole day. So it's probably my worst moment in Rocket League, like not qualifying for RLRS and not like actually getting far enough into the bracket that we wanted to.
Yeah. I always like to turn things around to a positive. So from your perspective, was there anything that you could take away from that as a learning experience? Be like, you know what? It sucked, we didn't make it, but we could learn this from this, or we could learn that. Is there anything you could take away from that and you were able to learn and grow from that from?
Most importantly, just don't take anything for granted. Like any given day, you can be playing bad. Any given day, another team could be like really heating up, really playing on fire. So just never take anything for granted. Just look forward. Let the past be the past. Nothing you can do about it.
Yeah. Now, on the inverse, or on the contrary, what's been your biggest accomplishment so far? Like, what's been something you're super proud of and you're really happy about?
Well, as of late, I'm extremely excited to be a Twitch affiliate. So that's like the one thing I'm proud of. But probably back when I was playing on Brace for Impact, we got into the like top 10 power rankings. That was a good moment for me. So it was nice to just finally be noticed as one of the best teams or some of the best players and being set aside like all those other players.
Yeah. So what's it like being on the Twitch partner grind, right? So what are some of your goals first, I guess, and then tell us a little bit what it's like to be on that grind of, streaming and, trying to make it to partner.
Well, streaming, like whenever you start out streaming, it's always hard because you try and boot up your stream, try and have a good time, but there's like that one or two people that are watching you, not even necessarily like chatting, which isn't that big of a deal if you're really trying to work hard at it. You just have to play whatever game, do whatever you're doing, just focus on staying positive, which I do struggle with like every now and then because the game does tilt me. But the grind has definitely been interesting. I just got my first subscriber about like
Nice,
a
congrats.
few days ago, so moving on up.
That's awesome, man. Awesome. So, what are your goals as a player? Like, obviously you're playing Rocket League now. What are your goals as a player and for Rocket League and going forward in the future? What do you want to see happen and what are you striving for right now?
I really want to get into RLRS just to not only prove myself as a player, but to prove that our team is good enough to be on that skill level. I really feel like we fell short this last time, so I really want to push forward and prove to everybody that we can compete with the best of the best and really deserve a spot up there.
Yeah. Well, I definitely wish you guys luck in the next event. What's going to be the next chance that you guys have to compete and qualify?
Unless they change the like format or whatever they have it right now, it's gonna be somewhere after like RLCS finals. So probably like a month or two, maybe three after the finals happen. That's usually the time that like other qualifiers pop up. So it won't be for a while, but we'll be training until then.
Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about Onslaught. How long have you been with Onslaught Clan?
I just joined them right before this last qualifier.
Okay.
I know Onslaught Clan has been with Alan and Alec for a long time. I know Onslaught's been a part of the scene for a while. But I'm really glad to join that organization, join the team, try and prove myself as a player, and
What's
try
that?
and go ahead.
What's it like, joining a team, playing competitively? It's kind of a dream of a lot of young kids, right? To play a video game competitively,
Yeah.
be on a team that's, serious. You're trying to make it into the league. What's it like? Give us a little bit of a taste of like what, behind the scenes, like what it's like and how has Onslaught, treated you and how have they helped you and, how's the team dynamic work and a little behind the scenes goodness.
Well, Onslaught Clan is probably one of the most supportive organizations out there. Like, our managers are amazingly supportive. They never have any like disrespectful comments or anything negative to say, even after you lose a series. They're always positive. They give you that reinforcement that you need. But let's see. Behind the scenes and being a part of a team, I'd say you just have to get along with your teammates. If you don't get along with your teammates, it's not going to go well. You have to develop that like out of the game chemistry to where if you did meet up like in real life somewhere, if you met up at a party, met up at an event, it wouldn't be awkward for you guys. Like you'd get along as friends. Really building that like off the game friendship and chemistry is really important for a team. That way you don't start blaming each other or like player shaming, saying it's this person's fault or it's that person's fault. Just trying to take everything in as a team, work together, never blame one person. It's always the team's mistake, not the player's mistake.
Yeah, that's a really mature response, and I'm curious, have you always felt that way, or did joining a team help you realize that? Did you learn that the hard way? Like, not everyone has that perspective that you have, and I think that it's good for people to hear that, because a lot of people do think that, oh, it's not my fault, it's their fault, they should have done this, they should have done that. But you can always turn around yourself and be like, I could have done this, I could have done this better, or I could have communicated what I was thinking here better. Like, how did you get that perspective, do you think?
All through trial and error. Of course, when I started up the game, I was one of those players where, like, I'm not losing because of me. Like, this person made that mistake, they need to play better. When really it's just, I guess, overestimating my skill or underestimating like the game and how like teamwork actually comes into play. I was definitely one of those like player blamers, like in ranked and doubles. If I overcommitted and my teammate didn't make a save, I would blame my teammate, being like, "Hey man, you got to hit the ball or you got to make the save." But just working through the scene, I realized like over time that's not how it is. Like the team loses at the end of the day. It's either a W or an L. You either work together as a team and accomplish something, or you fail as a team.
So you really kind of started to understand that it was more than just you playing solo by yourself. If you wanted to be good and recognized and be competitive, that you obviously you can't play a 2 or 3 person match by yourself and win. So you needed to rely on other people. So the only way to do that is to be more positive and be more of a team player.
Yeah, you really put it perfectly. You really have to be a team player. You can't just win the game by yourself. Like there's moments in the game where a player might be playing spectacular. They'll have their moment. They'll really play extremely well that game, but you can't rely on that factor every single time. Like different players are going to spark up at different times. You never know who.
Have you ever played any traditional sports?
I've played basketball, tennis. I played soccer when I was a kid, but not that much of it.
Okay.
Cross country I've been pretty big on, but not as of late.
Yeah. So basketball, great example, right? You can have streaky players that are just draining everything, right? And then the next game they're like cold as ice and they can't hit anything. And that's what you're talking about with the team aspect, right? Like not relying on any one person to carry you, but being a team player, right?
Exactly. When I played basketball, I was mostly a 3-point shooter. So I mean, when I was really on. I would hit almost every single shot from like the 3-point range, and I'd really like rake up the points for my team. But if I was off, man, you knew it. I would be passing the ball completely to my team.
Sure.
I would be even hesitant to shoot the ball.
That's a good point that you mentioned. It's something I want to tie into confidence. Something I'm really big on is helping people understand what confidence looks like, what it feels like, and how to kind of foster it and develop it in themselves. And obviously you haven't gotten to where you are competing with where you are without some confidence. So how do you feel about confidence? Like what are some of your thoughts on confidence and how maybe important it is to be able to compete and try to compete at a high level?
Well, a lot of people mistake like confidence for like overestimation of themselves, where you have to be confident in what you can do and also confident in what you can't do. you have to know your limits. You have to know where your boundaries are. If you know your boundaries, you know when not to go past them. So, for instance, on an offensive pitch side of the field, if you know for a fact, or maybe 10% of the time, you're going to make this shot that you're about to go for, probably you're better off just not going for the shot. And that's also takes a bit of confidence in yourself, saying, I know my limit. I can't do this. I need to get out of this play and just reset myself. So just, I guess, knowing your limits is the most important part of any competitive esport.
Yeah, it's that self-awareness, right? It's like the example we used with basketball just a minute ago was like knowing when to pass the ball to someone who's hot and knowing when to keep it because you know that you've got a better chance at making the basket or scoring the goal than somebody else does in their position, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really it's something I'm really passionate about is like figuring this confidence thing out and where is the line between, confidence and overestimating or arrogance kind of thing. And is it good to be a little bit skewed on the confidence side and kind of be really, really, in tune with, your abilities almost to a fault. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it is good to have somewhat of an ego just because you have to believe in yourself. You have to believe that you're that good of a player. So having that ego sit in the back of your head, just saying, yeah, I'm better than this, I'm better than that. I know I can do this a lot better than this person. Like that's always nice to have. Just you can't take that too far to the point where you become someone that's toxic.
Right.
And that you're expressing that to other people.
Right. I see people, and I've done it myself, right? In any video game is like you get so consumed, like we were talking about before, with it wasn't my fault. Like I'm good, I'm super good at this game. Like I don't need anyone to tell me how to play. And especially when people give you constructive feedback, right? You see it a lot. Like people turn an instant, right?
Yeah, constructive criticism is extremely hard for, I'd say, any person to take. Because that's someone coming at you personally saying, hey, look, man, like, I know you're not doing this correctly. You can do this and be a lot better at it. But as a person, your, I guess, confidence, your ego that you have is going to say, no, I know what I'm doing. Like, you don't have to tell me what to do. It's just human nature into where you don't like when people tell you you're doing something wrong.
How do you handle that? Like, obviously you're on a team, right? So you guys talk about this stuff, I'm assuming, and like, we could have done this better, or you could have done that better. How do you handle that? And, how do you, make sure you're welcoming it from a, positive standpoint?
Well, as a team, I feel like we really have good synergy to that point where in the middle of a match, we can say like, hey, Brian, you're being too aggressive. You need to sit back, slow down a little bit. And like right on the fly, we'll understand each other. It's not because we're attacking our teammate or because like, hey man, you're really messing up this game. It's you're just giving constant constructive criticism where players can listen and just react, change up their style of play, and really blend in with your team.
Yeah. Now I want to touch a little bit on the casting side of it. I like what Rocket League is doing with their media coverage and things like that. I'm curious how you feel about casting, and do you feel that casting represents the player as well?
For the most part, I love the casters, every single one of them. They really do represent the player as well. There's some instances where I'd say casters who don't really understand the advanced mechanics of the game, maybe they can like not be shedding positive light on some of the players, where a player they might think is whiffing the ball actually is being called off by one of their teammates so that he's just getting himself away from the ball, or someone who's like putting the ball off the backboard isn't really going for a shot, but the caster might think that they're missing shots or they're doing something that they're really not trying to do.
So how do you think that they can improve on that, or is there anything else that they could improve on and be able to recognize certain things, or is it just experience and trying to get an understanding of the game, the mechanics, and the teams and the style of how they play?
I'd say for any caster, don't like shed negative light upon any player in the field, even if they're like whiffing the ball or constantly missing, maybe not making the passes that they need to. Just keep focused on commentating the game itself and don't try and focus too much on the players. Yes, if a player is like popping off or they're really on fire, of course shed some light on that, but I'd steer clear of saying like, oh, this player is whiffing, this player is not really playing well. Just keep a positive outlook on the whole casting experience.
Yeah. Now, what's been the best advice someone has ever given you in your Rocket League career, your life in general so far?
In my Rocket League career, it would have to be two players that stand out. Would be Memory and Low Five. I know Low Five's not really into the Rocket League scene as big anymore, but I know Memory is still around. He's still trying to compete. But both of those players noticed that I was playing too defensive, or I would rotate like out of the play, and they said just like keep yourself closer to the ball. Don't like throw yourself out of the play just because you need boost. Like keep your rotations tight, keep ready in case your teammate needs you. Because every time that you like try and make an offensive push and you rotate all the way back on your side for boost, you're kind of leaving your team at a 2v3 situation on offense, and most of the time that's going to retaliate against you and they're going to have offensive pressure. So definitely Memory and Low Five telling me to just stick near the ball, like stop hesitating as much, just play your game and try and be a part of the team.
Awesome. What do you think the esports industry needs to continue to grow and be successful? Now, this could be, maybe let's talk Rocket League specifically. Like, what does Rocket League need to continue to grow and be successful? And then if you have any thoughts on the broader industry of what is esports, what do you see are some things that could use or what that needs to continue to grow and be successful?
Well, I think Rocket League is doing a phenomenal job of like representing themselves right. Cloud Fuel is a huge like support system of this Rocket League community. He's doing an awesome job setting up tournaments, setting up like Rocket Royales before RLCS and stuff like that to really get teams to practice. I really don't see much that they can improve on. Getting that like LAN build for like LAN tournaments and RLCS is going to be really huge. If psyonix themselves can really get a strong LAN build that doesn't lag, that's a huge part of any tournament, really, or any esport. Because you need, like, a LAN tournament should be a LAN tournament. It shouldn't be playing on servers that are miles away when you're all meeting up in a building. But I think Rocket League and, like, mostly Call of Duty and stuff like that, they're really portraying themselves well. Obviously, League of Legends and Dota are really two top tier like esports, but I don't really see a lot that maybe the Rocket League scene can improve on. I just say like keep on putting out tournaments, maybe try and work on getting some sponsors in. A lot of organizations have been hopping on teams lately, so of course that's huge for the scene in itself. Yeah, I think Rocket League's doing an amazing job so far.
Yeah, it's definitely exciting to watch, and from an outsider or someone who's not a player of Rocket League, it's exciting to see something that see a game that I feel like a lot of people can understand right out of the gate. Like as a spectator, it's a lot like soccer, obviously, right? It's like soccer, and
it is.
It seems like it would be easy for someone who knows nothing about video games to kind of watch on TV and maybe explain a few things and be able to understand and pick up where things are, right? Is that how you feel too? Or like, I'm curious in your opinion of how easily watchable this game is.
Yeah, Rocket League is extremely simple to a viewer, but extremely complicated to a player. So in a viewing aspect, all you really need to know is it's soccer with cars. You're hitting a ball into a goal. If you score, obviously it counts as a point. Yeah, as a viewing aspect, it is really easy to watch. It's really easy to follow. It's not like other games where you have to follow along with all the advanced mechanics to know exactly what's going on. You just know, hey, car hits ball, it's passing to another player. Car hits ball, they score a goal. It's pretty self-explanatory for the most part.
Yeah. Now, this is my last question. Who are the teams to watch right now, and who do you think is going to make a run at the championships, and who do you think is going to win? Like, tell me, your thoughts on how this is going to all play out.
The top 4 teams I'm looking out for are Cloud9, Method, PSG, and NRG. I really think NRG has the experience and the LAN experience to go far in a tournament. They just come up short like every single time. But Cloud9 has been on fire. They won the LAN at DreamHack Atlanta. They just won this last Northern Arena that I believe was the other night, or actually last night. So Cloud9 has been on fire. Method has been playing insane lately, and so has PSG.
What do you think?
Bluey being able to play is a huge monster for EU.
Yeah. Now, what do you think the X factor of Cloud9 is? Like, why are they just, seem to be the top right now? What are they doing that everybody else isn't?
I would have to say Torment is the stronghold of that team. He's really been a team player, like every single team he's been on. He'll play whatever role you need him to. But having someone as mechanically skilled as Squishy, who can pass from anywhere on the field, shoot the ball from anywhere on the field, come off the ceiling and make these ridiculous shots and double touches. And also having Gimmick, who, as of late, I noticed is kind of a physical player. Will go for those bumps on goalies. But, I mean, all around, they're extremely fast. They really work well as a team. They pass the ball to each other across the midfield. They don't use the backboard too much unless they're passing it to themselves. But, yeah, Cloud9 is extremely fast on the field. It's hard to play against them. I've played against them before in a few tournaments, and it's definitely not fun.
Awesome. My last thing is, if you have any shout outs or you want to plug anything, shout outs to sponsors or whoever, or teams, or anybody, feel free.
Yeah, man, shout out to Onslaught Esports, Onslaught Clan. I love that I signed with them. Shout out to my boy Fireworks. He's the homie G, home slice. He's the real one. Shout out to my dad, actually, who's been a huge supporter of me playing games and stuff like that. And yeah, it's basically all. I mean, my Twitter, @Heroiikz with an underscore at the end. And also follow me on Twitch. Got twitch.tv/Heroiikz, the underscore at the end as well. Some guy took the Heroiikz name from me. Probably myself when I was younger, and I just don't remember the passwords, but
Awesome.
Yeah, that's all I got, man. And shout out to you, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, you're awesome. It's my pleasure, and I'm happy to have you on. And it was really nice talking with you, and picking your brain about Rocket League and everything like that. And I hope that this is kind of a gateway to have some more guests on in the Rocket League scene, because I, for one, am super excited. Like I said, from an outsider's point of view, I'm super excited to see what Rocket League is doing. The support from the developer psyonix from the outside looking in has been really cool to see and awesome. And it just seems to be one of those communities that is very young, obviously, but has a good sense of where it's going and a good community that it's building. And the tournament scene seems to be growing organically and almost kind of a grassroots feel, kind of like the fighting game community. And I kind of like that. I think that makes a lot of sense to kind of go slow and gradually, improve over time and make it bigger and bigger in a mature, like, scalable, manageable way,
Yeah, Rocket League has been doing an amazing job so far at producing tournaments. I know a lot of community organizations have been coming out running tournaments. If it's not a problem, I'm going to shout out to Nexus Gaming, PRL, Shift Pro League. basically the major three tournament organizations that I play in tournaments every now and then.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll definitely have to try and get them on, and I'd love to talk to the tournament organizers and kind of pick their brain about, why they're doing what they're doing and how they're doing it, because I think what they're doing is really smart, and how they're doing it I think is really smart. So again, I just appreciate you being on and sharing with us tonight, and it was a lot of fun, and I just appreciate you coming on.
Hey, no problem, man. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. With that, I just want to remind everyone that if this all goes as planned, this show is just the beginning. Hey guys, real quick before you go, I just want to say thanks for listening and supporting the show. It really means a lot to me that you like it, and I hope that if you found some value from this podcast, that you'll share it on Twitter or on Instagram or Facebook, anywhere that you have a social media presence. I would love it if you would just share it with 3 to 4 people that might be interested in it. It would absolutely mean the world to me. It would help me get my name out there, help me get the podcast out there. I do this solely for the love of esports and for the love of getting to know people and hearing the stories of esports that I think are so awesome. So please, if you got value from this, if you enjoyed it, please share it with someone who you think might like it. And with that, I will see you next time. Thanks for listening. I really appreciate it.